Z, our solicitor, on the phone. And you able to hear us, Bill?
I am, thank you.
Okay, great. And you're coming in loud and clear. All right, so I'll announce that we had, prior to this, and we'll return and conclude executive session on litigation and personnel matters. With that, the meeting's called to order, and please rise and join me for the pledge, followed by a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Oh, that's snazzy. There it is. First time I see one of those.
We need to, did you make the adjustment? You already did that?
You
Okay.
got the nice stuff
So
for
they
the
need
ladies.
to
They don't have
announce
stuff
that,
like that for guys.
Would it differ from what's on the printed?
It's still on there as the item, I just changed the.
Okay. All right, very good. I got that. All right, 2.03, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Everybody's on it tonight. Any comments, questions, adjustments to the agenda? And Mr. McKee, I know you had mentioned about moving one item down out of consent.
Item 704, if it could be moved out of consent, please,
Okay, because you had a
due to
personal
conflict of interest.
And so everybody has awareness, 704 was is the non-public 2023-26 non-public pupil transportation for contracts to Shalom and Cumberland Valley Christian School. So that will come out of consent agenda, and we will vote on that separately. Any other items for the agenda?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Okay, agenda is passed. 3.01, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the June 6th Committee of the Whole and the regular board meeting?
Move to approve.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any corrections, omissions, anything like that that you need to call out? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Okay, minutes are passed. 4.01, President's report. Just a few items. Just want to obviously wish everyone a safe, restful summer. And we don't have a meeting, as we historically don't, in July timeframe. We have reached out to administration and said, if for some reason something comes up, then we'll address it and figure it out. But at this point, we're assured that everything should be okay. So we're not anticipating any reason to have a unplanned meeting. Our next one will be beginning of August. I hope administration has a good retreat. I think it's underway. You'll probably talk about that briefly, or good. All right, and mention Region 7. You might have seen on the agenda tonight that we have a appointment for Region 7. I want to just mention the rationale as to what we did. So obviously there's election that's coming that's only a few months away, and we recognize also that there's two candidates. And the board, I had, and others had real concerns about what if one of the candidates or both those candidates decided to apply, and what might the influence on the election would that be with this board making a decision or selecting one of those or other candidates. Fortunately, we had a former board member that is said willing to help us out in these extenuating circumstances. So we're looking forward to you rejoining the board here and later this evening. So obviously we put it at the end of the agenda because Mr. Finucane obviously doesn't have any background on the items that we're voting on right now. So we'll take care of that here at the end. But that was the rationale. And again, this is really extenuating circumstances that we took all factors into play, and we're fortunate that we have a individual that is very qualified to fill in for that short time frame. So, superintendent search, spoke with Tom Templeton, regularly in contact with him. He says, all right, so school's over and things are starting to ramp up. So just letting you know that, just that, starting to ramp up. We should see some progress over this next month. And finally, I want to just say a special thank you to Mr. Woodman for filling in as acting superintendent over this last year. It's been a pleasure sitting here beside you. So thank you for that. So that's the president's report. So with that, Mr. Woodman.
And we cross over a little bit there. So I have 3 items to report out tonight. I would first like to take this opportunity to thank the board and the community for the vote of confidence in me this last year as the acting superintendent. I am very blessed to be able to work with an amazing staff of over 1,100 employees. It has been a true honor to serve the community and our schools and our students in this capacity. I look forward to working with Dr. Redding starting next week as we continue to search for a new superintendent. For community knowledge, I am returning on July 3rd to my contracted role as Assistant Superintendent for Elementary Pupil Services and Chief Academic Officer. The second item I'm reporting out tonight is about the extended school year for our special ed students that qualify. Currently, we have roughly about 175 students in extended school year, meeting Monday through Thursdays here at Cash's. Today, we did have to return our students back home as we did not have power in this part of Chambersburg for about 2.5 hours this morning, and unfortunately it happened right before arrival with our students. But thanks to all the staff and parents for understanding, and to our course of transportation folks for helping us facilitate this last-minute change. The third item, as you heard from Dr. Shore, is our admin retreat week. Day 1, we worked on goals and expectations with all of our principals on the educational side and folks there. Day 2 was a data day, as that was today, as we prepare for how we use data to drive instruction and determine what students need extra supports. Tomorrow, day 3, there's actually an email that went out to some folks around the community, or some of our parents and our staff. We're doing an intense safety drill, and that will involve local and state entities. Our own police chief, I want to thank Gary Carter. He's planning and coordinating the drill. I'd like to thank Franklin County Emergency Management, the local and state police, and our sheriff's department, township supervisors, and emergency personnel. They're all going to participate in this very meaningful drill. So that's on day 3. That's my report. So thank you.
Okay, and yeah, I witnessed that last year. At least if it's a similar activity, and it's very impressive to watch. And I'm thankful that we have all of the agencies that come together to do this important drill. It's I think everybody states it's unfortunate that we have to do it, but it sure is. I'm damn glad that we are doing it so that we're prepared for something that hopefully never will happen. All right, Ms. Lynch for the 4.03 Foundation report.
Good evening. I prepared a rather detailed report, which I'm sure you've had an opportunity to take a look at. So in lieu of time, I will just highlight a few, what I think are some fairly important things. A brand new initiative that I'm very pleased to announce to the community is the Orton Gillingham Training Educator Empowerment Fund. We have a local family right here in Chambersburg, the Bucher family, and they're very interested in raising funds to help support and encourage Chambersburg teachers to participate in the OG training at the Children's Dyslexia Center in Harrisburg. That is by scholarship through the center, but it is very costly as it requires individuals to travel to Harrisburg Tuesdays and Thursdays for about 7 months and to spend 6 Saturdays in Harrisburg as well. So we have launched that. Our application process is well underway, and we also have begun raising some funds with that. So we're pretty excited about that. Just to highlight, our teacher grants program wrapped up. We did our surprise patrol the last week of school, and we ended this year funding a total of 14 teacher grants, which totaled $42,660.03. Just wanted to also highlight our financial overview to date between the foundation and the district. Since 2011-12 school year, we have provided $1,171,000 in scholarships, teacher grants $382,767, special projects $327,576. The total educational investment is $1,882,192. And this was at a cost to the district of $301,668. So the total return on investment to the district as of June 15th of this year was 624%. The CASD Foundation Board of Directors is pleased to inform the Chambersburg Area School District and our community that as of the end of this month, the financial support provided by the district to offset the benefits of the Foundation Executive Director will no longer be needed. The agreement for services between the Foundation and the school district expires June 30th, 2023. And I speak for the Foundation Board this evening, stating that they have elected not to renew a new agreement with a agreement for services with the Foundation paying 110% of the Executive Director's annual salary and $38,000 being paid by the district for benefits. This financial support has been referred to as a burden on the district budget in recent months by some school board members. We're grateful for the prior support and are excited to share that any concern about this drain on the budget will no longer be an issue moving forward. For those who may not know, the Foundation was founded as a 501c3 organization in 1994. In the early years, the staffing was provided by district employees as part of their additional district duties. In 2005, the Foundation hired Beth Luca as a part-time executive director. Mrs. Luca worked tirelessly, far more than her part-time hours, to grow the organization, galvanizing support that ultimately enabled the hiring of a full-time director upon her retirement. The Foundation paid Mrs. Luca's salary, and she did not have benefits. When I was hired as the first full-time executive director of the Foundation in 2011, it was through what was a fairly unique partnership at that time, with the Foundation paying the salary and the district paying the benefits. A number of PA education foundations use that model, which has worked very well. Many more have since adopted it. It was our goal to eventually grow to become financially independent of taxpayer resources, and we have now reached that goal. This exciting change is a result of the Foundation's assets reaching a level of self-sufficiency which enables the entire operation to be funded by the Foundation. Therefore, the $38,000 provided by the district to offset the benefits of the sole Foundation employee will no longer be needed. Please note that our mission will not change and that the students and teachers of the Chambersburg Area School District will remain the beneficiaries of the Foundation. This support in the last fiscal year exceeded more than $250,000. This new arrangement is a win-win for both the Foundation and the district. The point of contention is now alleviated, and we continue with what has, for the most part, been an extremely successful and positive working relationship. We're very grateful to the district for this financial partnership which, coupled with the work of outstanding Foundation board members over the years, and of course our donors, enabled us to grow exponentially. It has taken 29 years to achieve this financial milestone, and we appreciate the efforts of everyone who's played a role in this success. I would like to personally thank the district administration and the school board for their support over the years and look forward to our continued success as partners in education. Without the district students, we need not exist as an organization. Please know that the CASD Foundation is in good hands with an exceptionally professional and well-educated board providing full oversight, governance, and fiscal oversight moving forward. The Foundation Board looks forward to continuing to work together with the district to put the needs of our students and teachers in focus as we carry out our mission. During such challenging times, it is our pleasure to announce that the resources budgeted on an annual basis for the executive director's benefits may be utilized within the district for other more pressing needs. We have much to celebrate. Thank you for your time.
Sorry. And thank you, Ms. Lynch, for the support also over the years and continuing to, hopefully more years to come, many more years to come. I know it's been a great partnership getting to serve students and the teachers, hearing about the awards, the prize patrol, and it's always been a neat thing over the last several years that I've been on a board to hear that process and how it's turned out. I appreciate the continued support. Thank you. Okay, 5.01, members of the audience are invited to comment on agenda items. So as a reminder from policy 903, members of the audience are to be a resident, have real estate or earned income tax in the district, representing a group in the community, a district employee or a district student. And the disclaimer, this is a reminder that public comment is not a forum for personal attacks, antagonistic behavior, or harassment. Please be advised that you are accountable for any legal ramifications and liability that results from statements that misrepresent the truth, defame individuals, or disclose personal information that is not of public concern. Okay, so we'll start with page 1, and thank you for signing in and indicating those that want to speak. S. Rosenberry, taxpayer.
I'm here on behalf
Oh, have the microphone there. All right, flip it on, should get like a little green light. Just hold it up and give it a try.
Hello.
Good, all set, thank you.
I'm here, I'm the daughter of Jean Mackey, and on the agenda you have for the contract termination of Mackey Bus LLC. There's been conflict since the beginning of May between my sister and I over whether my mother should continue, and my mother signed the contract with Bobby, and then when the board approved it on the 23rd, on the 25th, allegedly an email was sent saying that my mother wanted to relinquish her contract with the district, and it has always been that I would be the one to take over the contract, which we had papers already drawn up to have signed, notarized and sent into the district, but upon this email, that didn't happen. So tonight I'd like to plead my case when you get to that point in your agenda.
Please, you still have a couple minutes yet or so.
I really don't want to, get into a whole lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't say, but my mom, I didn't bring her along tonight. She's 81 years old. She's in the start stages of dementia. She may remember one day what she's doing, the next day she doesn't. 3 weeks before school was left out, she was told she wasn't allowed to drive no more, and that really sent her in a very big tizzy. The things she said to me that she wanted to do to herself was unreal, and I feel that it was all done very unprofessionally by the transportation department.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Mike Hayducht on 719.
My comment pertains to item 7.19.
Is it
number 8.
Your microphone's not
I'm
on.
not sure if it's turned on. All right.
Yeah.
There we go. Thanks.
Okay. Item 7.19, new policy number 830.1, data governance and storage security. I consider every member of the school board to have two roles. One role is as a volunteer, since you are not paid a salary, albeit you earn the consent of the voting public. The second is as a staff member. Both roles are governed by the policies this body establishes, and by no means should any member expect or be granted any special privileges. This new policy prohibits the storage of district confidential and/or critical data on personal electronic devices or a personnel email account. And there is a very rigorous schedule pertaining to the retention and disposition of such data. Email to and from district employees to be retained for 3 years. Any records related to filed or anticipated litigation is to be retained for 3 years from the final disposition of the litigation. And any complaints regarding discrimination or sexual harassment retained until final disposition of the charge or event. A couple of years ago, I raised the question of why one and only one school board member would insist on using a personal email account to conduct school business. Surely board members, staff, and residents contact their representatives to raise issues. I'm curious how the information technology staff will acquire data from a personal device or email account in order to comply with this policy. And what would prevent someone not using the district systems to erase data pertaining to anticipated or filed litigation? People, this is too easy. I submit that effective 1 January 2024, when the school board reconvenes, that all members are no longer permitted to use personal devices or email accounts. If they fail to comply, they should be no longer permitted to participate in school board business. No one should expect to be special. The team is only as strong as the weakest link.
Thank you, Mr. Haydick. Lee Harker on 707.
Good evening, everyone. Lee Harder, resident, taxpayer, graduate of class of '92. I'm here this evening to speak on behalf of the Chambersburg Trojan Youth Association. I incorrectly noted the item. I'm here to speak about 8.01. Is that okay?
Yep. Thanks.
Okay, great. 3 weeks ago, we tabled an item, and I want to thank you for that. I look forward to having the opportunity to spend time with board members looking closely at that. I wanted to share a few pieces of information that I don't think are widely known to the community or to the board, and so if you'll indulge me for a moment. The startup costs to run a tackle football season approaches $50,000. The calculations that we ran on the current fee schedule, if we were to run a season similar to what we ran last year, would be approaching $24,000, $25,000. So we're looking at a potential spend of $75,000 for an organization that relies solely on the generosity of businesses and individuals and volunteers. There are, and we're really proud of this, this number, there are 53 corporate sponsors that have financially backed the CTYA for flag football and tackle football, 53. And if you drive up and down any major road in this community, you see them. Up and down Wayne Avenue, up and down Lincoln Way. Okay, they're names that you know and trust and that we all patronize. So we're really gracious. We're appreciative of their generosity. There's 107 volunteers that are committed to running the program, and that includes coaches. That includes coaches, but 107 volunteers from the community who are investing in young people. This year, we're proud to say that we've had to cut registration off. We've had to close registration because the numbers were growing so quickly. We have 176 football players signed up to begin practice at the end of July. 176. I coach in the pony level, which is ages 10 and 11. We have 56 young men signed up for football at that age group. 176 football players, 65 cheerleaders. 65 cheerleaders, right? That's a very significant number as well. I share some of that information with you just to try to put some perspective in place. I know that we're taking off the table a motion that was made, and it's my hope that whatever decision we do tonight gives us the opportunity to work with the school board, work with the administration, collaborate on a fee schedule and a policy that's a win-win for everybody. That's our hope. And so with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you. And the last person that I have awareness of, there might be another form back there, Travis Harbaugh, on 802. I think there were 4 forms back there.
Good evening. My name is Travis Harbaugh, 674 Hamilton Avenue, Chambersburg. I'm a resident taxpayer, a parent of 3 children who attend Chambersburg schools, a youth football coach with the CTYA organization, and a head coach of the Chambersburg Youth Wrestling organization as well, which I'm speaking on behalf of this evening. The youth programs are an instrumental part of the successes of our high school teams. Our wrestling team finished in the top 8 of the state this past year. The success of this team is affected greatly by the youth organization who support and develop these athletes, many times starting at the age of 5. As a result of the successes Chambersburg Wrestling is experiencing at all levels, we expect our youth program to grow and therefore might have to increase our practice days from 3 to 4 days per week to accommodate the 120 plus student athletes we have. All of these students are residents of the Chambersburg School District. Our youth organization has been able to host 2 to 3 league meets per year within the field house with very little problems. The youth organizations are here to support secondary school sports, and we have and will continue to amend our schedules to fit the middle and high school sports teams. If the school district had youth athletics as an option for our youth students, we wouldn't be having this conversation. They don't. So the community has put together volunteer-ran, nonprofit organizations for these kids funded by donations and parent-paid registration fees. With the proposed fee schedule, youth registration costs will only increase. As an organization, we try to keep the cost as low as possible with very little fundraising, as it takes a ton of work to run a wrestling tournament. Our fear is that this fee schedule will burden a lot of parents to the point of keeping their child home looking at a screen instead of bettering themselves physically and mentally in the wrestling room. When we apply the proposed fee schedule to our income expense sheet from last year, it shows that we would have ended our season last year with a net loss of $2,527. We would need to fundraise via donations, increased registration fees, or parent-conducted fundraisers, an additional $6,697 just to stay afloat. This additional expense to these youth organizations is something that we need time to plan for. As a wrestling organization, we propose suspending any passage of the revision to policy number 707 for 1 year. Form a committee where you can receive input from the community and the organizations impacted before moving forward. Chambersburg Youth Wrestling would like to be involved in this discussion. During this discussion, we would like to suggest ideas such as a security deposit for the season paid by wrestling organization to be held by the school district in addition to custodial fees. Reasonable proper care of the district facilities would result in our organization receiving that security deposit back at the conclusion of our season. This rewards responsible organizations and deters other organizations from misusing district facilities. We feel these fees should be put into the grounds and maintenance fund instead of the general fund in order to directly fund the maintenance of our facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Did I get everybody? Okay. What's your name, please? Josh Major. Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Josh Mayhew. Apologize for not signing up. We had a parents' meeting for football that I just came from. I'm a resident of Chambersburg School District. I'm a graduate of the Chambersburg School District. I am father to 3 football-playing sons. I'm a head coach of the Pee Wee Youth Trojans organization. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the youth sports in our area. Overviewing the recent changes to this, there is a few problems we ran into, and I just wanted to speak about the greater idea of what we have going. Since the middle and junior high football was eliminated in the Chambersburg School District, these youth organizations have become the de facto feeder program for our high school. And the whole point of cutting these programs was to save money. Now, we're imposing these fees on this feeder program, and I feel that they're just not feasible for what we want to do. In reviewing fees from other school districts, and I know some were quoted at the last meeting, I feel there's a discrepancy, and I would like to have the opportunity to meet with the board members and find fees that everyone can agree on. I understand that none of this happens for free. We would like to find a middle ground where we can pay and we can afford it, and also have the opportunity to budget for this ahead of time. Our budget is in December and January, and we're a month away from starting the season, and we would just love to have an opportunity to meet with everybody to work this out. In youth sports in general, I believe the best way to raise money for our buildings and grounds is filling that stadium on Friday night. And the only way that is going to happen is if we have youth programs that can build from the ground up and make this a successful program. I started here 3 years in high school, and we did not win very many games. Our mission is to change that and build a culture that we can have a winning championship football team that can bring a lot of revenue into this school district. So I ask that if possible, we could meet and find some middle ground and work together to build this youth organization, not just for football, for basketball, wrestling, and all of our other sports. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, just to make sure? Okay, see none. Oops, lost my online agenda. 6.01, Tiny Trojan Program. Dr. Long.
Yes, last board meeting we were asked to bring some information about the Tiny program. As you can see, there's information there concerning the classes that the students take and the teachers. And I received an email from Mrs. Finucane to follow up on some additional things. They also had 15 Tiny Trojans for the average class this year, ages 4 to 5. That's the age group that they try to do. The students who are interested in early childhood and pediatrics did a co-op through our co-op teacher, and they did their co-ops through elementary schools in the hospital, the NICU, opposed to daycares this year. So that was just some additional information that Mrs. Finucane felt it wasn't necessary to add. And that was in response to the Carlow University request for a partnership. With that, then, that becomes a really nice academy.
Great. Any questions for Dr. Long? Thank you for reminding us of the follow-up to Carlo. Any questions, board?
I'd just like to say that my granddaughter attended Tiny Trojans a number of years ago, and it's an excellent, excellent program. It's been around for many, many years, and I think we need to commend the people, not only Mrs. Finucane, but those who preceded her.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for the follow-up. All right, Section 7, consent agenda. We already said we were 704 will be pulled and voted on separately. Again, that was the transportation contracts for Shalom and Cumberland Valley Christian School. And any others that need to be pulled aside? Okay, hearing none. We have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda as documented there, again, except for the exclusion that I called out.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Dr. Diller. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and as we know, we don't have discussion on these. All those in favor of approving the items of consent agenda as motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, consent agenda items are passed. And now may I have a motion to approve the 2023-2026 non-public pupil transportation contracts, which was formerly 704.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on that one? Mr. McKee, I know you had said you had you had asked for it to be pulled.
Yes, I need, because of a conflict, because for many years I was at Cumberland Valley Christian School, and I do not think I should vote on the issue. I should abstain from it.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, all those in favor of approving what was 704, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, that passes. Next item on the agenda is old business, 8.01. May I have a motion to take from the table the revision to policy 707, which is use of school facilities. Is there a motion? Okay, hearing no motion, what that means is that this will not be, essentially, it stays on the table only for like one meeting, so this resolution or the item that was to be discussed is now kind of, I guess, dead, and it will go back essentially, effectively to committee for, to be reworked and policy reviewed, renewed, et cetera, and I'm sure in that process there'll be discussions on fee schedules, et cetera, as have been discussed, as we've heard in public comment and discussed as well. Okay, so that will not, again, not be effective now. It will go back to committee. 9.01, so obviously if we're not, 802 is dependent on 801, so we'll jump to 901. The CPI behavior management training workbooks. We have a motion to, those, I'm not caught up here, is that information? Mr. Whitman. Hold on, that's a motion, right?
It is a motion.
Okay, I just got refreshed, so may I have a motion to approve the purchase of the workbooks?
I move to approve.
Thank you, and a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Whitman, you're going to make a comment?
Yeah, these, we do have to train our special ed teachers on de-escalation and also proper restraints. We have, for example, many students that may hit their head on purpose or things like that, and we have to have our teachers properly trained, and we have to report any form of restraint to the state and what strategies were used. So these books accompany this mandatory CPI training that the teachers receive and aides that are in those classrooms.
Okay, thank you. And obviously we had to, this wasn't on the Cal last time, correct? Due to the timing.
Yes.
Sensitivity, we had to put it right on tonight's agenda. So with that, are there any questions for Mr. Whitman? Okay, hearing none, then we'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving 901 as presented, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, 901 is passed. 902, Social Studies Resource Curriculum. Information item, Mr. Whitman.
Yes, this is an information item. We had a committee of teachers in the elementary, middle level, and high school level that spent many days reviewing resources from different companies. It's been well over 20-some years since we refreshed our social studies resources. Those are going to be on display out in the lobby here at Cash's. Normally they're on display at the admin building, but we, per our policy, we put those on display for 30 days. Then it'll come for a vote in August for the board. So just for the community purposes, they are in the lobby of Caches. Folks from the community can come in and take a look at our social studies resources and make comments at the next board meeting in August.
I don't think much has happened in the last 20 years that we have to refresh them, but we'll save that for August.
There are some different countries since that have come about or changed.
Okay, well, we'll have a review of it. It's in the lobby, and then we'll see. All right, great, thank you. 10.01, may I have a motion to approve personnel actions?
Move to approve.
Second. Thank you, thank you. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor of approving the personnel actions as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, personnel actions are passed. 10.02, motion to approve the ESS addendum for EYS support. Motion to approve this, please.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Thank
Where
you.
we at? Where we at?
Thank you, thank you. All right, Mr. Woodman, is this, I think this is also, I'm sorry, Mrs. Clever. Any questions for Mrs. Clever? This was on Cal last time, or not? This is the one we had to bring in. All right, so this is an item also time sensitive for the ESY coverage over the summertime that we're offering. And Mr. Woodman had mentioned this morning about the power challenges. So any questions on this addendum? Okay, hearing none then, we'll, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, 10.02 passes. 10.03, may I have a motion to approve new policy 718.1, therapy dogs in school on the first read?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, and a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. And we talked about this in Cal quite a bit last 3 weeks ago. Any discussion?
I have a little bit of a concern that this policy doesn't tighten up the restriction that it is volunteer therapy dogs versus employee therapy dogs. I would like to see it revised to assure that that's the intent.
I would like to also echo that I believe it should be the same way with volunteers that bring in a therapy dog versus employees. I think our employees have so much responsibility to begin with, especially guidance counselors. I've often heard that from guidance counselors that it's very difficult to reach all the students that they need to reach, and sometimes I think adding this to the mix, if it were a school employee, can be very difficult for them. I'm in favor of volunteers bringing in therapy dogs sporadically, and also even something after school with therapy dogs would be a great club or whatever. So I would agree that I feel it needs revised.
Any other comments or discussion?
Yeah, I concur with what the ladies are saying down there, Dr. Diller and Mrs. Gogler. Need to make sure it stays with volunteer groups.
Okay, then I'll conclude with my comments. I kind of have the other opinion that, I was here at Night of the Stars, and a student had awareness of this discussion that's going on, and actually approached me and said, "Hey, is it going to get approved before I graduate?" I was like, "Sorry, but no." I could see the disappointment. Personally, I look at it this way. I've heard before somebody, I can't remember exactly where, but the individual said, "Hey, let's try. Let's not be afraid to try." And if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. I think the policy as written is clearly gives the administration the ability to permit volunteer organizations to come in, as well as if they feel a particular position whatever that be, a guidance counselor or whatever, is that it would be appropriate or permissible. It might even augment and help that situation, that we should allow administration to make that. To me, the policy clearly lays out adequate parameters and basically avenues to get out if we needed to. And I think it even clearly states that if at one point it just isn't working out, then that's like done that day. So I lean towards what's it hurt? I mean, the way also that it's written, there's no cost to the district. So why not try?
Yeah, I agree with what Dr. Schur is saying there. I see a lot of value for our students. I want us to become a district that puts students first and is really weighing what's best for students in our decision making. I like when we have employees that come with creative ideas, innovative ideas, and this particular person put a lot of work into pulling this together. We as a board had a lot of great questions for them. They've responded well to them. So I certainly appreciate the work that the council that's leading the charge on this has done for this. And I agree with Dr. Schur. Why not try this? What do we have to lose? If it doesn't go well, we can, at the administrative level, there's no reason you can't shift gears and say this just isn't going smoothly. But I think we have a lot to potentially benefit from as a school, as students, if this can go forward, and we can try this. So I'm very much supportive of this as a concept. It doesn't mean that there couldn't be any problems with it, but I just don't understand what we have to lose from a student perspective.
Can I just add that I really believe, and we'll be voting on this, but I really believe we're putting students first when we make sure there's adequate time with their guidance counselor. Having a guidance counselor going off to the different classrooms and walking through the halls, it can become a distraction. And I just believe that we need to put students first. And even though there's disagreement on that, we are putting students first when we make sure their counselor's available to see them when they need them.
I would like to add also, we want an environment where our students want to come to school. We want an environment where they, I know I learned best even with topics or subjects or things that, wasn't very interesting, but if the teacher was interesting or the teacher, you had fun with it or whatever the case was, it made you. I was speaking with a music instructor, and she was mentioning how the one child had attendance problems, and they ended up getting in touch with her, and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's here every day. When he was here every day, he had music. That was his thing to come in. And I think when we can add value to the student's education with something like that, I think that I'm kind of along the lines with Dr. Schur, why not? Let's give it a try. If that's something that's going to give people our students a reason to kind of want to be around or come to school or whatever else, I say why not? Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, no problem with the therapy dogs. It's where, I think it's just good to have volunteer groups. I have no problem with the therapy dogs coming, but I think it's best that.
If we had staff bring a therapy dog, don't you think that would allow even more volunteers to engage? I mean, wouldn't it create an avenue for that?
As a matter of fact, I didn't realize that therapy dogs already were being used in the school until I saw the post on Facebook from the district where a therapy dog group, Kindly Canines, came into Ben Chambers. So we already are using therapy dogs from volunteer agencies, apparently, and seeking more opportunity for that is fine. As far as Dr. Schur's statement about the student who approached him, it's unfortunate, in my opinion, that the student or students were primed to support this in advance of the discussion.
Why would they not?
Pardon?
Why would they not want to support it? I mean, I thought the counselor did really good work, in terms of polling students. We had some email exchanges earlier this week where they polled students, and it was, what was it, 94% of students were excited about this possibility. I think that's helpful information to have when we're trying to make this kind of decision. So I don't know that, I don't see any drawbacks to engaging students in this before we make a decision about it.
It would be like saying, would you like to have ice cream or steak for dinner?
Well, both.
A lot of kids would say ice cream.
I think many would say both. I want it all. Well, I don't know if the student was primed, quote, or not. I just know the individual came up to me. I guess I have distinctive facial features, and said, I know the board's talking about it. I think we also know, that there were therapy dog program that came into, I think it was Ben Chambers, but there's also a couple districts in our region close that have therapy dogs. So it's not like we're stepping into fresh snow, at least locally. And again, I still look at it as, even if it is fresh snow locally, there's easy ways to terminate a program if anything, if administration feels that it's inappropriate, whether that be from volunteer organization or from an individual. And if we reference guidance counselors, I don't know that there's it would be on administration to outline, this is your job responsibilities, which are already known, and it's not, we've expressed it's not an expansion of anybody's job responsibilities. If it is guidance counselor, then he or she needs to make sure that those primary responsibilities are met, not going down the hallway and randomly popping into classrooms. And I'd expect administration would be enforcing that.
I'd like to, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was saying, I'd like to maybe hear from admin if this is something that would be burdensome, or if this is something that they feel like would be beneficial, or whatever the case is.
Is it from admin? So Mr. Woodman or Dr. Long?
Everyone likes dogs, I believe. Some people like cats, and I can't figure out why. Sorry, just came out.
How about horses?
So it's not a therapy cat policy. No, it's a therapy dog. There's a lot of different avenues with this. I mean, I'm very supportive of therapy dogs. We have service dogs as well, and we don't talk about those, but we have those. Therapy dogs can help students in a special way. Having a daughter years ago that had severe allergies, that rings a bell in my head, so that we would have to be very careful of our students that have 504s, that have allergies to pet dander and things like that. So it would just be an awareness of everything that's around us, not just having a therapy dog in, but it would be more of the holistic look of the building to make sure that every student is taken care of. But I have heard both things from administrators, from teachers as well, but I will have to say I've heard more positive for therapy dogs than negative.
Thank you. Mr. Norcross, were you going to? Okay.
Dr. Long sort of set me up, and we didn't even plan it, but I still have concerns about it. And the first evening it was presented, one of my questions then was regarding liability and responsibility. And in our subsequent conversation, I still never really felt that we got a good answer, except for, insurance is provided. But that's covered under administrative regulation, not a policy. My other concern I brought up that night were allergies, and I'll stay with allergies, and I'll have my third point. It doesn't anymore. Allergies are prevalent to whatever, whether it's an animal, some type of food, some type of clothing, certain types of clothing. There's allergies everywhere, and the burden. Are we not maybe also adding additional burden with trying to manage, segregate, separate, allergic students from non-allergic students, and just the time that would take from administrators, custodial staff, everyone. We hear how our staff are overworked, and we need to get them more help. Is this maybe not going to create some more responsibilities and burden, and is it worth those burdens? I'm not at that point yet tonight. And my last point is, so how do you start differentiating? Dr. Long mentioned, so which therapy animals are permissible and which therapy animals are not permissible?
Hey, there's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's a slippery
We
slope.
might have therapy zebras in here soon.
It's a very slippery slope. And then the other part is which staff members are allowed to have a therapy animal? Is it, and it's just, I'm just afraid that we're opening up a whole new realm of issues and potential struggles, potential roadblocks for everyone in our buildings who we repeatedly hear they're already, there's already too many other things for them to have to do.
If I can take what you had said and ask a question to administration. If you have a student that shows up and says, I have a legitimate 504 whatever service dog, to me would be even potentially more impactful to an environment than what we know that the individual that brought this forward is in a guidance counselor role that is more secluded. If you have a student, let's even say elementary, that's in with other classes, how would you handle that situation? Because therapy dog or not, that could happen tomorrow, in August, right?
Or when we bring the drug dogs in.
Well, right, we have the drug dogs today, and that's typically, they're probably in the classrooms, et cetera, so they're secluded from those, but dander would still be, in the air and things like that. But let's just go with my example. August, student shows up and says, I have a paper here that says I have a service dog. And we don't really have a choice. We have to take it. So all the concerns that I've heard in that case doesn't really matter. I don't know that this is significantly different, other than that we have a little bit more opportunity to contain it, like where it would be, where the dog would be, and et cetera. But administration, please.
We have had 504, or we've had seeing eye dogs in our schools before. But also, to the other side of the point, we do have students now that have very severe allergies to pets. So administration would have to schedule carefully if we have students have medical 504s. We'd have to schedule carefully not to have that pet around a student that has the severe allergies.
So you run into the point of ADA for both of them. So you would really have to make sure that you're not excluding anyone, and you're scheduling appropriately for each and every child based on that scenario.
Okay. Were you finished, Mr. Norcross?
Yeah, they were my comments and my basis.
Okay. I'm sorry that your questions weren't addressed, I think, to your satisfaction in the follow-up times that we've had this on agenda. So I guess with that, then, if there's no other discussion, roll call vote, please.
Dr. Diller?
No.
Ms. Gogler?
No.
Mr. McKee?
No.
Mr. Norcross?
No.
Mr. Raber?
Yes.
Dr. Schur?
Yes.
And Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Motion fails 4-3.
Okay. 11.01, school pass. May I have a motion to approve the school pass as presented?
Move to approve.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, I think this is also an item that was a little time sensitive, correct? It wasn't on the cow?
That's correct.
All right, any questions on School Pass, what it is? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of passing School Pass, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, School Pass passes. 12.01, may I have a motion to appoint Michael Finucane to the Board of School Directors for Region 7, effective immediately.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, I'm not sure if I can do a roll call. I think I have to do a roll call vote on this one, so a roll call vote, please.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Mrs. Gogler?
Yes.
Mr. McKee?
Yes.
Mr. Norcross?
Yes.
Mr. Raber?
Yes.
Dr. Schur?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Dr. Diller?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Finucane, you're fortunately here with us tonight. Come on up. We'll administer the oath of office, and then you can join us at the table.
Welcome back, Carter.
Welcome.
Welcome back.
All right. Raise your hand. I think you need to see it, or I'll go slow enough. Okay. Okay. Oath of office. I state your name.
I, Michael Finucane,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend.
that I will support,
Obey and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of the office of school director
of the office of school director
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Great. Thank you very much. Welcome. Tammy's
Right
got you
down
set
here?
up down there.
Right, you'll have to go through there to get to this one.
Run the gamut.
Yep.
We'll get that update.
All right. We'll move to 1301. I know in the last.
Dr. Schur.
Oh, please go ahead.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
I want to ask my fellow board members to consider speaking closer to the microphones. Everybody's trying to hear you here and wherever they might elsewhere trying to hear what the board members are saying. If I put this out here, you probably can't hear me very well. So depending on how loud you speak, get closer to the microphone. That's my request of my fellow board members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I've also learned that if I get too close, then it's.
I have one more thing to say.
Okay, please.
This is my third time on the school board. You would think I would be smarter than that. What I found interesting was figuring out, well, how long will I be on this time? And I figured out 161 days, and I thought, that's the way teachers think. Teachers think in days. So somehow I'm married to a teacher, so I've learned to think in days too. So I've got 161 days here. So. But I'm glad to be back. Thank you.
We're thankful as well. And yeah, I think the convincing thing was I said those extra 160 days are going to really bump up his school board Peaser's pension. Obviously kidding, because it's on YouTube.
The neat thing is that you get the pay for the entire year.
Exactly.
And the benefits, yeah.
Okay, I was saying that our last meeting was June 6th. I think it's obviously with summertime committees. I don't know that we've had any, so we'll just do a quick rundown. With Finance Committee, we did have one scheduled, but it had to get rescheduled, unfortunately. So we'll start at the end real quick. Mr. Raber, anything for the good of the order?
I think most of the committees I'm on, somebody else will be reporting. I will say, I would like us as a board to take a good look at the climate survey. that the district did 2 months ago and have discussion. I don't know how we do this best, but I would like to see us be intentional about just responding to that and being proactive as a board. I think we have work to do as a board, and we have work to do as a district and an administration. And I've talked to Mr. Widman. He said that they're really working at responding to some of that at the school level, right, within each building. And I think that's really smart. It's a great path forward at that level. But what can we do as a board to address some of the things that are concerning within those findings? I would like to see us grow. You probably can't grow in every last detail all at once, but what are the things that are most pressing, and could we be proactive as a board in addressing some of the concerns that stood out to me, whether it be from staff or students or parents? It's a tool that can really propel us towards growth if we use it well, and so I just want to encourage our board to do that.
I thank you, and I agree. I think that's something that we purposefully should each review and digest over this next summertime break, and we will have to figure out how to appropriately tackle that starting in August. But obviously, first review and digest. But thank you. I appreciate calling that out. Dr. Diller?
No.
Okay, Mr. Walker?
No other than transportation. It's on the agenda. We're selling the bus. Other than that, no.
All right. Ms. Gogler?
The Joint Operating Committee for the Career Tech Program met last Thursday night, and the highlight of the meeting to me was the presentation by Lori Ebersole regarding recruitment and marketing. The Career Tech recruitment for future students begins in 5th grade. I don't know if people realize that they go out to the 5th grade classrooms, and they also have a tour of the Career Center that's available to school districts to participate in. And then they also visit 8th graders, again, to assist them in narrowing down the career choices and to further familiarize them with the career tech programs. And one of the things I was so impressed with that they emphasize in that 8th grade orientation or recruitment type of program is the importance of grades, attendance, and discipline. It's discussed the importance of the 8th grader being aware that those things are going to be considered whenever they are in 9th grade and are putting in applications for the career tech programs. And then, of course, again, in 9th grade, there's the selection process, and they, again, have specific things that they do early in the 9th grade year to orient the students to what choices they have and so on. And there were 2 young ladies who, one was a graduating senior and the other one is still a student there, who were a part of the presentation, and the leadership skills that they demonstrated were just phenomenal.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Norcross?
Yes, I want to commend Mrs. Gogler for another great JOC report, and I just wanted to follow up on her report from last month regarding the cyber approach to career and technical education and the fabulous presentation we were given by the staff. Mr. Miller discussed that briefly in his administrative report again at Career Tech last week, and that is being pursued in more depth by actually all the districts who participate in Career Tech. So that is a joint effort by all the school districts, and again, thank you, Mrs. Gogler, for that report last month, and again, this month's report. The other part I liked about Mrs. Ebersole's report was the 5th graders do, what was it, My First Resume? There's a paper that they hand out to the 5th graders, and they actually make their first resume, or maybe an early resume. And that was just a great presentation and interesting to hear. One of the other highlights from JOC, we were working on the evaluations and therefore compensation for the staff. It was overwhelming by a majority, unanimous by all the members of the JOC for the increases that we awarded to our director, our assistant director, and our principal, Mr. Scholes. And one of the reoccurring themes that all the members, most of the members commented on, a year ago we went through a pretty good transition over at Career Tech with Mr. Duffy retiring, moving Mr. Miller up, brought in Dr. Schumann, came in as the assistant, and that team has never missed a beat in the transition that they went through. So that just another great attribute to the staff and all the staff over at Career Tech. And the one note, if you saw that Dr. Scher and I were just passing back and forth here, and Mr. Z will ask you this, Mrs. Smith was also one of our members, Chambersburg representatives on the JOC. How do we go about filling that seat, at least until we do board reorganization? What would be the proper protocol?
You would present them with a candidate, and then they would vote that person in for that seat.
But we vote that person in, our board.
Yeah, our board selects.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can. I mean, you would do it. You would do it the same way that you normally would.
Okay.
Okay.
If need be, we still have substitutes. That,
Absolutely. We have alternates, but
alternates, yes, that's
so it's good.
Okay, so we'll put that on the August, tee it up for August agenda.
And one thing on buildings and grounds, Mr. Rayber teed this one up for me a little bit too. In regard to the climate survey, yeah, I agree. We should look at that, but we also need to listen to the staff. I've had conversations with staff, and this repeated claim about dirty school buildings, I'm not hearing that from staff. And if I'm wrong, if you don't want to email it to me, my address is 2568 Echo Springs Road. Put a stamp on it and mail it to me. Let me know. Take a picture or whatever. I've talked to buildings and grounds folks. I've asked them, do we have a problem with the cleanliness of our buildings? And I have not gotten a yes. So we also have to be careful of the results from a survey and what we get feedback from our staff. I want to explore it a little deeper in buildings and grounds, and then, all right, what are our options? Temporary hiring service or temporary cleaning service that we tried, I think, a couple years ago. One item that we do at Career Tech Center is we actually have students who do it on a part-time basis. You know, I don't know, maybe we have some students who want to, you know, mop floors from 4 p.m. until 9 p.m. a couple days a week. But there are ways to solve this, but I haven't heard the outcry that we hear from that's been mentioned before. But we will look into it at Buildings and Grounds a little further.
I mean, I've heard from Cash's teachers who have said their floor hasn't been mopped all year. So I think some of the essentials are getting done, like taking out the trash. But I've heard it from quite a few.
I have also in some talk even in the barber shop.
Well, I'll kind of do what I normally do, and I'll just say, hey, let's, I think we got to not throw the baby out with the bathwater, but kind of do both, and that's what I'm hearing from folks here. We got to look at it and dive into it, but also be mindful that there's of what we hear. I mean, there's I'm reminded of a survey that we did a couple years ago on COVID, and it's like, oh, yeah, but only 25% of the people responded or whatever. And it's like, okay, so, yeah. It's feedback that we got. We should take it, digest it, and then figure out, how we act on it. So I think so we got a month or so to review it and start and come back and start to peel the onion. All right, Mr. McKee.
Nothing at all, sir.
All right. Mr. Finucane, anything else? All good? Okay. All set. Okay. Then we'll move to 1401. Members of the audience invited to comment on non-agenda items. Same comments that I made before still apply. Gloria Guba. While she's walking down, that's the only person I see that has a comment. Is there anybody else? Okay, Mr. Haydock, we'll get you on here again. Anyone else? All right, and is the green light on there?
My name is Gloria Guba. I'm a relatively new resident and taxpayer in Franklin County, having been here 10 years. I live in Guilford Township with a cat. The Chambersburg Area School District, like most school districts, faces its fair share of challenges: student achievement, personnel acquisition and retention, facilities and budgetary trials. But unlike many other academic organizations, Chambersburg strikes me as one with an ever-growing wealth of community resources available to support and enhance its successes while limiting roadblocks. There are a number of organized groups of energetic, passionate, insightful, and well-intentioned residents, parents, activists, and just plain folks connected to local groups with names like United, Concerned, Coalition, Reconciliation, and Community. Their mission statements, beliefs, and values echo a resounding similarity to those of the Chambersburg Area School District. The faith in and the dependence on public education for the sake of this county's most precious resource, her children and youth, all of them. I have yet to attend or log into a board meeting where you have not recognized student success and acknowledged student efforts to enrich their school culture and their personal experiences while attending Chambersburg schools. I can only imagine that it offered additional and varied opportunities to express themselves. They would no doubt speak out, reach out, affirm dependence on each of you, and demonstrate that they may be your finest key communicators and potential community leaders. As you prepare to close one academic year and look to launch another with its challenges and opportunities, I implore you to consider the value of developing and enhancing what you've already somewhat established. Add to your vast community of learners those many Chambersburg educators, parents, and students. Add to them the potential of a community of leaders. Cast a net for additional and varied contributors with ideas that may not be like your own. Draw in conversation and interpersonal relationships those in the wider school community who desire to support, to trust, and to share their gifts with all of you, their elected public servants. The poet, and I'm concluding now, I heard the bell. The poet Robert Frost once put it when describing a response to the multiple tasks before us as human beings: the only way out is through. And later, another writer added that the only good way through is together. Even when circumstances and beliefs separate us, In fact, especially when they do. The way through is together. Thank you for affording me this opportunity.
Thank you. And Mr. Haydock.
Yeah, I hadn't planned on saying anything else this evening, but with respect to the conversation about the climate survey, in particular, dirty schools, I don't know. If it were me, I'd not rely on somebody else's opinion. I'd go see for myself. And I often wonder how many of you school board members actually get up, go to the schools, walk around, go to the bathrooms, look around. I've been hearing stories about kids not wanting to go to the bathrooms, whether they're dirty, whether there's bullying or improper behavior going on. I don't know, but if it were me, I'd go and find out for myself. That's what I encourage every one of you to do.
Thank you. Okay, with that concludes the regular board meeting. So the meeting is adjourned. Given the time, let's just keep on rolling right into Committee of the Whole. Thank you. Pause just for a minute. All right, so 1.01 CEP presentation. Mrs. Stein and Mr. Ford. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you. For me, you are too kind. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. This is Jared Ford, Director of Food Service, and I'm Bobby Stein. We have a short presentation for you on the Community Eligibility Program, and we will reference that as CEP throughout the presentation. Next slide, Scott. What is CEP? The CEP program allows the food service to provide free breakfast and lunch to qualifying locations. Buildings are eligible based on the percentage of directly certified students, and that would be SNAP or medical assistance. Buildings qualify at 40%.
The CEP calculations would take the identified students. Those who show up as identified would be the, like she just mentioned, directly certified. You divide that by the total enrollment in the building, and of course times that by 100 to get your identified student percentage. And then the reimbursement rate for a CEP school would be the qualifying percentage that we just figured out above, multiplied by a factor, which is currently 1.6, set by the USDA to establish the percentage of meals to be reimbursed. So it gives you examples there. 40% ISP equals a 64% reimbursement rate. 62% ISP would equal a 99.2 reimbursement rate. And just for a little bit of clarification on that, that percentage would be the rate you're reimbursed for at a free reimbursement rate. The additional would be you would be getting the paid reimbursement rate, which is obviously significantly lower. Okay, and again, the ISP is the identified student percentage.
Scott, can you go to the next slide? One more. That one, thank you. Okay, this is our current CEP schools. This is for a 4-year period, and we are in the first year of a 4-year cycle. Well, we actually just completed it. CEP locations are able to maintain their status for 4 years. Every 4 years, the food service is required to reestablish or regroup those schools. We obviously have re-looked at that data to present you with some options here this evening. Next slide, please. Option 1, this again is our current option that we have, our current school's CEP financial outlook. This is an estimate, a revenue estimate, because our last claim has not been submitted, but the revenue estimate is $6.8 million, and I'm just going to round these numbers. Our operating expenses are estimated at $6.5 million. Cost to the district is our potential student debt, and actually we just ran that number today, and it's about $55,000. And we are still collecting student debt. Letters are going out, and families are paying. So we hope to get that number down. The food service net position would be approximately $266,000. Next slide, Scott.
The second option we wanted to present tonight financially would be all of the elementary schools participate in the CEP program. The revenue estimate almost $6.6 million. Operating expenses at about the same, 6.5. And cost to the district, it's fading in and out on me. Cost of the district and potential debt would be about $80,000. And then so the food service net position would be $28,008. Option 3, next slide, please. Fading in on out. Sorry about that.
Technical difficulties.
Option 3 would be if the entire district went CEP. Revenue estimate would be $5.9 million. Operating expenses, again, you're looking at about $6.5 million. Cost of the district in lost revenue would be, as an estimate, and it's a very low estimate based on this year's numbers, of $600,000. So the food service net position would be a loss of $600,000.
And so just a few points. We do need to have the data submitted for the sites that we want to include in CEP by June 30th. And we're kind of open for questions if anybody has any questions.
I'd just like to say that I am 100% in support of option 3. Nutrition is very important, not just to elementary students, but also to middle school and high school students. And there's a relationship between absenteeism and schools that have free meals. And absenteeism in our middle school is a concern to me because absenteeism in middle school is reflected in school dropouts. It's statistically proven that there is a relationship there. And the cost to the parents of the middle class students who are paying for their meals will be more than recouped if they have to have a tax increase, which with our revenue potentially being higher from the state, as well as our fund balance and so on, I think we can afford to take the risk and go full CEP. The benefits are greater than the risk. If you calculate a child who would eat breakfast and lunch every day at school, a parent is spending approximately $1,000 in a school year to pay for those lunches for one child. Obviously, this would not change anything for the children who are currently getting free meals. It would only make a small difference for the children's parents who are getting reduced fees as far as the meals are concerned, but the middle-class people who are probably the ones that are owning real estate and paying real estate tax would see a significant savings in their budget from one month to the next by not having to pay for their students' lunches and breakfast. And as I have often said, I've never been hungry in my life. I look like I've never been hungry in my life. But we do have children in our district that are hungry. And they don't all fall under the free and reduced meals. Sometimes it's dysfunction in the family that results in them being hungry. I know that from some families that I'm familiar with. It's just, our society is just very, very different than it was when I was growing up. But of course, meal when I grew up in Chambersburg School District was 25 cents for a home-cooked meal prepared in the cafeteria at the school that I went to. Things are very different. So I would encourage my fellow board members to support CEP in all schools, which is option 3, and give it a try. I think we're going to find that it has a lot of benefit.
I would just like to reply to that if I could. Financially, we are looking at serving all elementary schools, but we do have a major concern with going with all CEP, which would be staffing. We've noticed this year all the students receive free breakfast, which is awesome. I think that's great. We did have an increase in our meals served this year because of that. So it's definitely a guarantee that more children are impacted by free meals. But our concern is our staff shortage. We're down 25 part-time and 5 full-time, which is 25% of our staff. And so just to give you an example, at the high school, we should have 16 people serving at the high school, and we have 8. So an increase in meals could be an issue. And I just wanted to express that concern.
If I'm not mistaken, there's also a decrease in the work that's involved whenever you're full CEP, as far as calculations and record keeping and a whole lot of that kind of thing.
So yes, there would no longer have to have the office staff take care of applications and things like that, which most are done on the throughout the district websites and state-provided websites. So yeah, there would be a decrease in that, but as far as actually in the cafeterias, serving, preparing, we would definitely have to have an increase of staff to be able to handle the amount of meals that potentially could be coming through.
One benefit to the CEP at the building level would be, I don't think the students have to put in their IDs.
That's
it's
right.
just a matter of counting, but that still has to be counted.
Yeah, so at the elementary school level, there is that benefit. At the larger schools, someone could be using a tally sheet. However, I will say that the state does frown upon that. It is allowed, but in audits, they, again, will allow it, but they dig a little deeper. You know, how are we ensuring everything if we're not making, or how are we making sure that students aren't getting multiple meals? You know, they start looking into all that. Again, it is absolutely a benefit. Quite honestly, there's been a couple times this year where our smaller schools were able to operate with only 1 cafeteria employee rather than the normal 2. Because of that, they've been able to just use the tally sheets rather than having each student use the computer and type in their ID.
Bobby and Jared, elaborate on that a little more, your earlier comment. we would serve more meals under this program? That's breakfast. That's just breakfasts, or
So this
how
year,
would we be having more meals? I'm not following that.
So this year, we were allowed to serve free breakfast. That was a decision made by our state. It was not a federal decision. And we served more breakfasts because they were free. We had more participation. And because of that, we're anticipating if we went all CEP, we would have increased participation in both breakfast and lunch. That's because more people can eat for free and they're not having to pay.
So it'd be less students who pack a lunch?
Potentially.
Potentially, okay.
Yep.
All right.
Or don't eat.
Or just don't eat.
Or don't eat.
Right.
So we don't have a vote, but you gotta be able to walk away with a pretty good idea, I guess, because it has to be submitted in 3 days.
Yes, it does have to be submitted in 3 days. I think that if you would decide on option 3, I believe we would have to do something.
Yeah.
Tammy, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, I would recommend if the board is supportive of this, to the point with food service in Chambersburg, because of the economies of scale, our operation has never really needed to come to the general fund. The only money that has come from the general fund to food service has been for the bad debt. So if the board is supportive of us, and I'm looking at Jared because I think there's no food service person who doesn't want to feed everybody. Pretty much that's where we're at. I would think it would be beneficial just to memorialize that in some manner with a future vote, because at the end of the fiscal year and the audit is over, once Danette does all her magic with the auditors and the accounting, we're going to be standing in front of the board asking for a general fund transfer to cover whatever operating deficit that food service had. So
Well, it would be good to have an artifact to remind the board when we get amnesia.
correct.
Actually, we'll say the next board.
Correct.
And just to add to that, if we enter into all CEP, that would be for 4 years, unless we decided after a year that, we wanted to change that or take some away from a grouping.
So if we went with the option 2, we couldn't come back in and add secondary next year if we wanted to.
Yes, we could.
We could.
We could, and
All right.
I would highly recommend that,
Well,
just
yeah.
because there's some things potentially, increase minimum wage, which would impact the food service budget. Not knowing the increase in the meals and things like that, I think it would give us some more time.
And I apologize, but Bobby doesn't even know what I'm about to say. Another piece of legislation that is out there and getting a lot of support from other school districts, again, it's something that's being talked about quite a bit, is universal free. If not statewide, potentially nationwide. And the way the legislation currently is being read, if we went all CEP and took the hit of how much it would cost us, if that legislation passes, then we have to remain CEP. We don't benefit from the additional reimbursement that we would be getting if they did pass the universal free.
I'll weigh in with my comments. We just passed the budget, and to come back now with $600,000, if somebody came back, Ed, I can, not to pick on you, but I can imagine if somebody, because we've heard this in years past, you mean to tell me we just passed the budget, and now there's a request for another $500,000?
I resemble that remark.
Yeah, I know, it's a badge of honor. And it's like, that's exactly what's here in front of us. So I'm like, there's no way I could support option 3, even though, I might could conceptually agree with it or not. It's just, timing-wise, no. We just passed a budget, and I'm not going to take a risk of $600,000. In part because then, even if we say we wanted to go there, okay, so this automatically bumps, our decision here would automatically bump this above other things. So $600,000 for the food, or reading specialists or some of the other stuff that we didn't get. I think we got to wait. Unfortunately, we're in time bound right now, June 30th, so I think no. And, I hesitate for saying this because it's on YouTube, and I'll just keep it short. We just passed up on something that was free. Granted, not food, but it was free to the district. So $600,000, no, can't do it. I'd be fine with option 2. All right, so other people got to talk because they need direction.
I have some questions. As I understand this, we're currently under option 1.
Correct.
And if we do nothing, that's where we are.
Correct.
Is that what you're recommending?
We were actually recommending that we move to option 2, which would be all elementary schools.
Why were several elementary schools not in the current schools?
So last year, when we ran all the numbers, this was the best option that we could come up with. Now this year, rerunning the numbers, we've had more students qualify because they've been directly certified, so they're getting SNAP or some other state benefit. So the numbers have increased, meaning that our reimbursement rate with the option 2 is still very high.
Does option 2 mean that 3 of the entities would be dropped?
No. Option 2 would be keeping what we have and adding the additional elementary schools that were not included.
Okay, so the Franklin Learning Center, Early
Marikey.
Learning Center, Marikey, they're in.
Yes, they would continue to receive the benefit. And actually, the Early Learning Center, I think, automatically qualifies.
And if we later decided to add middle schools and high schools to this level during the 4-year, we can do that?
Correct, as long as we do it within the timeline that the state allows, which is by June 30th.
Just so everybody understands, we actually reevaluate the numbers every year. The only time you, when you're making changes, it's always to benefit. How many students can you benefit with the free meals, and can you, take care of the cost? And that's why we're recommending option 2. But again, next year, we would obviously sit down, reevaluate the numbers. And again, the perfect situation is to be able to continue to add and not have to worry about taking away.
I also wanted to know, this involves free lunches and free breakfasts.
Correct.
So why would there be student debt?
So in the first 2 options, you're looking at student debt.
How does that happen if it's free?
Because not everybody would be in CEP.
Not all buildings are being served.
Option 1, we remain the same, so you have.
That's just another figure that's got nothing to do with this. You're just saying that's a loss for your department.
Correct.
Well, my initial thought is certainly we would want to go to at least option 2 and then get to 3 as quickly as possible. I agree with the comments about nutrition being incredibly an investment in students being awake and learning and present. I was also touched by someone spoke to the board within the past year or so about being embarrassed in, I think it was high school or junior high, that just being embarrassed about whether they got a free lunch or not, and not even getting in line, so it couldn't be told which line they were in. And I had never thought of that. But
And just for full disclosure, in 4 years, or next year, if we regroup, and then we do have all of our buildings in CEP, and then in 4 years, when that cycle ends, we have to reevaluate. There is always a potential that your reimbursement rate could go down if you don't have the same amount of students directly certified or more. So just for full disclosure, once we start this, you could see some sort of backlash from that.
Can you just answer a question? Oh, sorry. When you're talking about certified, you're addressing those that have submitted free and reduced applications. How are you certifying?
No.
So, no, directly certified means the state sends us the information directly. The families have to do absolutely nothing. It automatically shows up for us that that person, that student, that family
That student is in need.
Directly certified and in need.
Boy, that's a significant positive, because in the past it used to be based on free and reduced applications, and there were parents that would not take the time to do that. So you're getting all that information from the state now, which is where you're getting your certification numbers. So that means kids at the high school, you would know who would be certified.
Correct. We find out who's directly certified. Now, the applications are still out there, and we still accept applications for those who are not directly certified. There is a new regulation that is actually now directly certifying reduced students as well as free students. So families that are in need, but the state, based on what they're looking at, says they don't need to be free, they can be reduced. So, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff out there now.
So is the state looking at income tax records, or how are they coming up with that number?
It's based on, well, I'll let Bobby do this.
So the direct certification is based on people that are getting benefits for SNAP, medical assistance, things like that through the state. We do still have students that fill out free and reduced applications, and that is based on your income and the size of your household.
Okay,
So
and
they're
that's where you're
they're two different things, and
Okay, gotcha.
this is selected off of the direct certification percentage.
Okay, but I know we've run into problems with parents filling out those applications. If they're not in SNAP, if they're not in those other programs, there are still people who can't afford to pay for the lunches.
That is
and
true.
breakfast. And sometimes they don't even fill out the application, even though they're in need.
That is correct.
Yeah,
we
and sometimes
try to
it's-
push that, but, you know.
Sometimes it's not just about taking the time to do it. Sometimes they don't know, right? Or sometimes they don't have access to
Computers.
the portal or computer or phone, right? Or sometimes it's language barriers.
We
So
do give
I think-
options for people to come into the food service office and get help filling out the applications. And I believe the secretary staff at the office, she helped quite a few people do that. And also our interpreters have helped some people in the Spanish population.
Yeah.
Or even what Ms. Gogler alluded to, sometimes family situations aren't the best, and so you have children showing up who, because of some adults' decisions, now they're not, in a position to, stomachs rumbling and not even learn properly because of. Are there any penalties with the option 2 or 3? I'm just 1 or 2. If we do switch out, I know you said that there's a possibility of losing monies if we're not maintaining the amount of students that are in from year to year.
That would be in the 4-year cycle, because once you select a cycle, it can be good for up to 4 years unless you choose to regroup, in a year or 2 years. So if you don't regroup and then you wait for your 4-year cycle and you look at all the data and suddenly you've lost 200 or 300 kids that were directly certified, then your reimbursement rate is going to go down and your cost to the district is going to go up. So I just wanted you to know that.
Historically, has that happened?
Yeah. Do we track that year over year?
Let me respond to that, Bobby. Historically, so I just want to give everybody a little bit of history with CEP. Came out, I believe, around 2014 and was a part of the Healthy, Hungry, Free Kids Act, which changed the way that food service has to, you used to have to offer versus serve. We don't deny any child a school lunch. If there's no money in the account, that's where the bad debt comes from. So I want to make sure that people understand that if a child comes to school and they don't have money in their account, we do not turn them away. They are offered and they receive a free lunch. Well, technically, but we do not do that. We have had in the past, this was first brought to fruition with Ann Ziobrowski was the food service director and brought it forward. We had a few schools that we could qualify back at that point. There's a multiplier with the CEP, which is 1.6. And I remember Ann explaining this, you need to get to 60. That's about the magic number. That gets you about to 96% subsidy reimbursement, which is what pays for the cost of the food service. So at that time, the direction was that we would look at this and make sure that it would be a cost-neutral type thing to the district. So that's been the direction for food service for many years. There was an occasion where we had to drop, I believe it was Hamilton Heights. I'm looking at you.
That was going to happen before the pandemic, and then we went free, and now their numbers have gone back up.
But there have been occasions where, because of the shifting of our population and the number of direct certified students being in an individual building, we've had to adjust schools. That's not a good thing to do. When you're serving everybody free one year, the next year, they're no longer free. I'm thinking it was Hamilton Heights, and Danette's daughter was there, and she's shaking her head. So there is that potential that happens when you go to regroup and you get to the end of that 4-year cycle. The way that we're able to group the buildings is that the larger poverty buildings, the larger the direct certification numbers are, they kind of balance out those lower ones till we get to that magic 60%. So I just want to give everybody that background information. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you.
Jen?
And just one last thing, I did want to respond to the embarrassment. So again, with regulations, as well as just being good people, things are set up that there's absolutely no way a student can tell if the student in front of them was free, reduced, paid. Accounts aren't talked about, at any level. I know back when I was a student, free students had to go in and get their ticket for the day, and then everybody saw them give the ticket. That has all been done away with. There is absolutely, should be no way that someone would know what someone's status is.
What do we do with the student debt at the end of the year if it's unpaid?
So during the year, there are emails and phone calls that go out once we call it once it gets to like a low balance on the account, and then once it goes negative. Ultimately, they try to collect. If at a certain point we do not collect, then those accounts are turned over to collections.
I really do not like that.
That's board policy.
Okay, can we as a board take a look at that? Because I don't know, my wife and I right now,
Option 3.
my wife and I are working right now with a young person trying to clean up their debt, and it's just a ginormous mess trying to get out of that. And I just think over whether or not you can eat at lunch, that's just not worth it. The consequences for, let's say you have $100 on your, the amount of work you'd have to put in to remove that can just be tremendous.
Well, if you notice under donations, we frequently have anonymous donors towards student debt.
That's great.
I just feel that we can eliminate it with option 3.
Yeah.
And as far as the budget having been passed, our budget was passed without any additional money from the state. Are we going to turn down the money from the state because we passed a budget without that money? I don't think so.
I just don't know what we're going to get from the state. But let me remind everybody, we still have 11 items to cover, probably a 2-hour discussion after we're done here on personnel items. So if we want to keep talking about school debt or not, lunch debt, I've asked Tina to put it on the policy committee in probably September.
Mm-hmm.
We can start that process. But I think these folks need some general direction, and I haven't heard a clear direction on option 1, 2, or 3 yet from only a discussion perspective because we're not voting.
Can Can I get my one question in?
Sure.
And maybe part of it was my colleague to the left started it too. Do you track the data on the percentage? And where I'm driving with this at, so I only asked one question, and it'll be at the end. You know, we have 4 elementary schools that haven't hit the 42% mark, you know, but are they potentially getting closer? And do we have other schools who are, you know, soon to cross over the 62% threshold? And what I'm getting at, is it only a matter of time till middle schools hit one of those thresholds? Do we have data that, I mean, that we might be getting, even in another 2 years with option 2, we might be capturing middle school students or maybe 1 or 2 more elementary schools.
Got to be close.
So all CEP, the total percentage of direct certified is 51.74%. And as Tammy spoke about that magic number, which is why it would cost $600,000+, is because we're not getting to that magic number. And so all of those schools, you know, the higher numbers help the lower numbers, you know, reel them in. But when we brought in the middle schools and the secondary buildings, the high school and career magnet, that really brought that down. We can only hope that those numbers will keep rising.
Well, in some ways, we hope. From
Yeah.
From a budget standpoint, but
Just
from a
purely from
community
the
well-being
CEP aspect.
standpoint, we
Yeah,
want it
that
to go the
didn't
other way.
That didn't sound right, sorry.
Right. Jared, you made a point about there may be some reason to go with option 2, because if legislation ends up passing, we forfeit funding, possibly, depending on how the legislation pans out.
Legislation that's out there, and there's no way of knowing where it's going to end up. But as it currently is, if they pass a universal school meal program, everybody who is automatically free, directly certified, still, you know, that still goes in. Everybody eats for free, but we're not reimbursed at the same rate. And so if the legislation passes and we're a completely CEP district, then we are required to stay at our CEP reimbursement rate. If the universal passes and we're not CEP, then we get full reimbursement rate.
So there's 2 reasons to possibly stay with 2 for now. And one is that, and the other one is staffing.
Correct.
Okay. I personally leaned towards 3 until I heard about those 2 reasons, and now I'm hesitant because of those 2 reasons. But I'm definitely in favor of 2.
Just to refresh my memory here, was there some universal free for a couple years here? When
Yes.
was,
Yeah.
for 2 years? And then this past year, it stopped?
Except for the universal breakfast.
Which the state passed. So if for the first 2 years, what we call the COVID years, it was a federal universal free breakfast and lunch. The other variable, and again, going back to, you know, where we are right now, we have struggled since COVID to get anywhere near fully staffed. We lost a lot of people during that COVID year. People didn't want to come back. The way that Jared and his predecessor and Bobby have handled that is we've had to reduce options. So at the high school, there used to be, I think, 4 options. We now do 2, correct, Jared? 2 major. But my point to all that is that the staff at that level can only produce so much. So if we go and look at the COVID years, you know, when we were in and out, you know, the participation rates would have been lower. Attendance was actually a problem in the first full year when we came back from COVID. There was a lot of attendance issues. So there's not good data to really look and say, okay, we can handle this, we can't handle this. We just know that in the past, This facility particularly had 16 staff members, and we have 8. So we're at half capacity with our staff. The other thing I think we would need to take a look at is, and I'm looking at Mark because we have a, what do we call it, the lunch, how that goes. It's like a longer period and it goes through, they rotate through the lunch periods. Wait, thank you, couldn't think of the word. You know, just the timing of whether or not you can get all the kids through, and that would be something we'd have to sit down with Mark and Brad and look at the schedule for that. So those are things that would have to be looked at. I do want to say too, though, you know, I think if the board is supportive of the general fund supporting food service, you know, I think we are willing to try to do what we can to do that. Just know that there are some things that may be hitches, and we could have, you know, some issues early on that, you know, if we can't attract staff, you know, we may have to look at increasing wages. That's going to increase that amount that the general fund's going to have to do. But, you know, we want to feed the children. That's not, I just want to be clear that that's, however many we can do, we want to do that.
What would be the impact of going to one option?
Probably less participation.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I would think that you would have less participation. You probably have more waste. Kids are going to take meals that they don't want. I don't know. We've not had that option for,
I didn't hear what you said, Faye.
One option of, you know.
Just serve one option.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That's 2, instead of 2 entrees or whatever. Gotcha.
We used to have 4, though, you're saying.
Well,
I mean, if anything,
I'm okay with going with fewer options because kids are getting fed.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
How many options does your wife have for you?
None. I'm the one who get in that kitchen.
I think we got to put food on the table that kids are going to eat, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you have the same, you know that they eat this, so you don't have choices that they make.
No pun intended, but I could swallow option 2.
Can we do 2 and work toward 3? Like set that as a target by next year. We want to move to 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if that's, you know, what we would have as a direction.
Okay.
And so again, support from the board to cover the additional cost. I think we could come up with a plan and, you know, lay out it. I do think it's going to involve some other factors such as, you know, looking at what the barriers are right now for us getting and keeping food service staff. I think our starting salary is
This past year was $11.50.
Yeah.
Going into next year, it's $12.
right. So we'd have to look at some of that whole thing, but we certainly could do that.
I'm with option 3. I'm kind of on lines with Ms. Gogler, but I also recognize that we were talking earlier, my colleague and I, about the food service staff being paid more. So I know that's going to factor in. So it's wow, we got to.
Yeah, I'd also like to see some students who are doing internships in their senior year help out with food service and be paid at the going rate right now, that we could use some of those. I also think that we really need to get the information out when we need people to get some of the stay-at-home moms that would just come in over the cafeteria time. I think we need to put a bigger emphasis in that to help with our shortage with staff. I guess I lean towards option 3, but I also feel there's other areas that we could have savings in our district as well to compensate for for the $600,000. That is a chunk of change, but I also know that families are really struggling. If we went with option 2, after we find out what the government's going to do about universal free lunch, could we opt in then? Or if
Not in the middle of the year.
But the following year.
Yeah, every year we reevaluate the numbers. If the numbers are better and we can add schools, we definitely do that.
Well, the one thing that bothers me is, and it's not that reflection on any of you, it's just that I just don't feel like the kids that aren't in the free programs, that layer above there, I just don't think they fill out the applications, and that really does hurt a school district in the reimbursement process. I've experienced that in the past, and that does impact the numbers significantly sometimes. So I lean against option 3.
Yeah, I would say option 3 is optimum. I mean, and I agree, I don't want to see any child go hungry, and I know that's not the case now. I know because you're required to give them, but then, of course, you go after the money later on. But, you know, I just want to also be fiscally conservative, you know, because 600,000, and I agree, we don't know what the state budget's going to give, whatever, but I'd probably leave option 2 right now. I wish I could go option 3, but because I don't want to see anyone, you know, do that.
You have clear direction? I don't know that I've heard clear direction.
4 and 4.
I got 3 and 5.
Okay.
Which one did you hear 3?
Well, I don't know, Carl was on both options.
Yeah, well, I'll go 2. I'll go 2. I mean, I'd love to go 3, but I'll go 2.
2.5 it is.
So all CEP? Is that what you said? Oh.
No,
Option
there's,
2.
I had, all right.
Is the 5 for the option 2?
No, it's,
That's what
you know, we're not taking a vote, but just kind of hearing what people said. It seems like it's split.
Yeah. Split between 2 and 3. Nobody's in favor of 1, though,
so
right?
kind of just as a reminder, administration's recommendation is option 2. And while we don't know what we're going to get from the state, we did approve a, what, $800,000, 2.2 million budget deficit?
Correct.
So that's banking on getting a lot from the state. Well, I think the other way to look at it is if we don't come out with a clear option, then we don't proceed with 2 or 3, and we just stick with 1. Because that's the status quo.
Doesn't make any sense.
I mean, realistically, we can't seem to come up with direction, so we don't do anything, and we keep it with where we currently are.
Well, we at least do 2.
It said 2, then if that's the case, I guess I'm leaning more towards 2 then if that's, you know, if it's going to come to that kind of stalemate and what have you.
I want to see us get to 3, though.
Yeah, for sure.
So how about this? Option 2, we'll go with all elementary. We will reevaluate, and we will do some things this year, looking at our staffing and what it would take to do all CEP, and we'll work on that. And hopefully next year we can provide meals to all students free. So, but this year we will report out all elementary schools.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. 1.02, American Red Cross, Facilities Use Agreement. Mrs. Stauffer, 102. That's all right. I was
Mr.
stalling a little
McKee's.
bit.
Okay, yes. The administration recommends approving the facility usage agreement with the American Red Cross of Central PA, Chapter South, as presented. They are requesting, should there be an event of a disaster or an emergency, access to 5 of our buildings. We do have the ability at the time of that disaster determining whether or not we can accommodate the request. So we're recommending approval for that.
Yeah, in reviewing this previously was, I just had concerns about, are we locked in, are we not? And I think so Mrs. Stauffer worked back with the Red Cross and made sure we had appropriate flexibility. But I mean, obviously, if there's a natural disaster and we're at the point where that those needs exist, then we'll try to facilitate. Okay. Any questions? Okay, we'll move it to consent agenda for next time. 103, Keystone Red Rock Job Corps Agreement. Dr. Long.
Yes, we were asking for approval for this agreement. We had used Red Rock prior to this for a GED for the students, but now with the development that the students can stay enrolled in our school and use Keystone Red Rock to do job training with credits then to help them finish their diploma while they're in school. So it's not a GED, but it's an actual diploma from Chambersburg School District.
Sounds like a really good advancement in that,
Yes.
in that area.
It's an excellent advancement.
All right, any questions? Okay, consent agenda 104. Dr. Long.
These are new forms, updated forms for cooperative education, internship, externship, and work-study education. They have been developed by Andrea Moore, who has been our career advisor, oh my goodness, CAC. I can't remember I'm terrible with acronyms. Okay. But she's our career person here at the district. So she came up with these, and it just gives us a better format for both the job site and our district with requirements and things like that.
So basically 4 different, these are agreements with organizations, so.
Some organizations have students hired, and we use that for work study, so we really want to keep track of where the students are, so we would ask the students to take that to their job, and they would fill that out, and we would have a record of where they're at, so we can actually give credit where credit's due. And then externship, internship, they are based on hours compared to co-op. Co-op has more hour requirements based off of CTE. That's where CTE is coming in. Career Technical Education really promoted the co-op program, and they set the hours based off of that. So the school districts followed suit with that co-op hours.
Okay. Any questions for Dr. Long on it? All right. Put that to consent agenda. 105, Avinia.
105 is a reoccurring contract to provide, mostly what we use them for is for nursing services for our special needs students. Some of it starts in home care or prior to school to during the school day.
Yeah, I think and you also have in there the funding source. I know that, to your point, I've heard them before for years.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and Diacon, consent agenda for Vinia and Diacon.
Yeah, Diacon, this is to approve a reoccurring contract for one of our students.
Yep.
So we've been working with them for a while.
Yep. Okay, consent agenda then. 107, New Story.
Yeah, 107 is a reoccurring contract with New Story. This is for 3 special education students for the 23-24 school year.
And just as a reminder, all of these are extenuating circumstances, needs that we're not able to really cover by our current resources.
Yeah, students at New Story do have some very specialized needs.
Okay. I'll pause. Okay, pausing. No questions. All right. Speech pathologist contract 108.
This is a recurring contract with a speech language pathologist. Some of the work is needed during an extended school year as well.
Okay. Is that, you're okay from, this is 23, 24, is this all right from a summer ESY program right now?
It would be also for next year if needed.
As well as next year, but we're still covered for this year?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And Comengo law?
The last one is with Comengo Law for our special ed legal services.
So as we know, this is, we have special ed law, and then there's, I think, attorneys that specialize in education technology area that we have separate from
Yeah, we've been using
bills.
the Comegno Law Group for 20 years at this point.
Okay. All right. All right, all of those go to consent agenda. And 110, naming rights. Mr. Miller's been hanging around.
Well, good evening, everybody. Oh, it's on. That's good. Since the evening is getting long, I will be very brief in describing the new agreements that we have, but we're very pleased to present 3 new naming rights agreements this evening, as well as 1 signed quote for a previous agreement that was approved by the board. Just to note, going forward, a little change in how we're going to present these to you. In the past, what we've done is brought a proposal to the board for approval and then the signage quote as well at a later date. Sometimes this was because of the vendors that we're working with. What we're going to do in the future is to bring both of those together at the same time. It's going to cut down the times that we have to have these conversations. And then what's, I think, good about this as well is that you get to see not only the amount of investment that's coming in, but what we are expending out on the signs, and you can get a net gain, an understanding of the net gain for each agreement that we're actually going to have. So I think it makes sense to kind of pair those together. You'll see those in the 3 agreements that we have. The first one, and by the way, again, I'm going to go pretty quickly through these, as most of these agreements are standard. But if you have any questions about locations or any of the terms, please feel free to stop me. The first one is with Tommy's Express Car Wash. They had reached out to us following some of our advertisements that we've done about the program, looking into some signage in the Trojan Stadium and Cassius Fieldhouse. They're looking for 1, actually extremely large sign on the gymnasium wall exterior, and of course you can see that we have some artist renderings of those as well, and as well as non-slip floor graphics in the Cassius Fieldhouse. It can be viewed as you're sitting in the bleachers. Also, with this agreement, another one that you'll see, we have some of our first digital advertisements that are a part of these agreements. These are the ads that you see at the very top of all of our pages. We have several options for companies to provide digital ads. These are some of our first ones that we have for every single page that we have in the district. And you can see some of the terms are outlined there. I'll go through that just briefly with you as well, because we're hoping to see more of these in the future. These ads are serviced by a third party that we have a contract with. They provide 1/10 of a share for each page that's viewed. So every time you refresh it, you get 1 out of 10 ads. Based on the agreements that we have this evening, we'll have 2 of those slots filled, and we'll still have 8 open that we can fill. Right now, they have different ads for the program itself. They are able to create their own digital advertisements and send them to us. We provide them to our vendor, and then they update those ads. Of course, we will make sure that all the ads that come in for approval match the district sponsor agreement and all the policies that go along with that. But they can change those throughout the course of the agreement as they have different things like different promotions that go on throughout the year. They only have to give us a couple days notice so that we can get that to our contract servicer who handles those. So for that agreement, the total investment is $10,000 per year. It is only a 1-year deal for this one. However, in talking with their leadership, they're very excited about it. They'd like to give it a trial run, a 1-year trial run to see how it works. I think based on their signage and the locations, they will get quite a bit of a response from what they're doing. And so fostering that relationship over the next year through these ads that we have on the website, they get monthly reporting. So they're going to see some very real results for what we're providing. So we expect them to re-up The signage cost for this agreement is $4,220 total. So of course, if you take that away from the $10,000 that we have per year, that's a net gain still into the revenue stream that we have, the revenue special revenue fund of $5,780. Now, of course, if they re-up in the next year, there's no additional signage costs unless we have to fix the signs in some way. And so you can see how the longer we get them into these agreements and the longer they stay in it, the more money we have for students, which is great. So any questions on that? Oh, and I will say just briefly again about the perks section. I encourage you to read that. This has been standard through all of the agreements that we've had since actually this program began. But they talk about some of the different additional marketing benefits that they could have if they so choose to take advantage of them, such as having a marketing booth at some of our games. They have announcements that are read throughout the games. If you've been obviously to the games, you've heard those that they give. And these are just standard. So for all of the ones we have tonight, they're all exactly the same. And it's up to them to take advantage of them. Okay, and then the next one we have is with Blaze Alexander Collision Center. They again had seen some of our advertisements that we have been doing in the chamber and some of the direct mails that we have been sending about the program, and reached out to us about having the Trojan Stadium ticket booth. So as you walked in here, you passed some of those coming out of the parking lot. They would like 2 signs, and you can see again artist renderings of those there. Those signs come with a total investment of $2,000 per year. They are committing to a 3-year agreement with us for these. So over the course of the entire agreement, that would be $6,000 that they would give into the special revenue fund. The total cost for the signage is $1,255. Which would give us into the revenue fund a net gain over the entire length of the agreement of $4,745. Okay, we have even more. And next we have ESS. You all are pretty familiar with them, or should be. ESS is our servicer of substitutes here in the district. And so we had been talking with them through some of our staff. They've been contacted with them. They are looking at the Trojan Stadium sign. That's actually on the back of the Trojan Stadium where the announcer's box is. So again, if you're walking in, if you kind of just take a look straight up, you can see right where that is. So for the staff or the parents that are coming into the district for different events throughout the year, the idea is some of them may be looking for employment opportunities, could see there. Maybe they have an investment already in the district with their students. They could be a part of that. And so it's a pretty easy sell for a company like ESS to advertise with the district. So they have one sign there, as well as a digital advertisement with us as well. So you'll start to see them on our pages. Again, if you're interested in the district, you're looking into it, that pops up. Maybe you want to be a substitute with the district as well. So it makes sense for them from a marketing perspective, which is what we try to do with all of these agreements. So that agreement is a $4,000 per year agreement for 5 years. Over the entire term of the agreement, then it would be $20,000 to the special revenue fund. The signage for this one only costs $850 for that one sign that we have. And so that's a net gain to the district after the cost over the entire term of this agreement of $19,150 into the special revenue fund.
Can I just add a quick, can I just pause there for just a second?
Yes.
The ESS sign, could you pull back up there again?
Oh, sure.
Is going to go on our stadium.
Yes, and that's on the exterior facing side of the stadium.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if that's not going to be confused with, we are hiring as the school district, we want teachers and support staff. We currently have lots of openings. Will people get confused? I need to contact ESS because it's going to be at a very prominent place.
Sure.
And I'm wondering if we don't need to have our own sign there so that, because we're hiring, and that's a very prominent location.
Absolutely, and we could not agree with you more. In fact,
so I don't know that I like that location for that sign.
We have already, we're working on signs that we're going to order probably in the next couple weeks that are going to be around the same size of that inside of the stadium, actually advertising the job openings that we have.
But there's so many people that go down that road by the YMCA, and I just wish there was a different location for that sign, because we do need employees in the district, and I think there's going to add to some confusion.
Well, and we also have other signs. I mean, we have, this is not related to naming rights, obviously, but I've been working with Tammy Stauffer. We have signage that's going up actually all across Chambersburg right now. We have 4 very large banners that are going up at the corner right here past the, I forget what the street is right here that we have. McKinley, yeah. And 4th. In fact, it's going to be on our fence. That's with the practice field that we have.
But I'm just
there.
wondering about the ESS, if we couldn't find another location. That just concerns me.
Sure. Yes, please.
Those signs you just mentioned, they were up already, and then they were down. What happened?
We had a typo error on those signs.
You had a what?
There was a typo on those signs.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So we're working with our vendor to get those replaced.
We do also have some larger yard signs that will be going in for the positions that are open. I think they're in right now. The buildings and grounds folks are going to be putting those in around Cams South, Cams North.
Yeah, that's right.
Is there another location I'm missing?
There's actually one right up here at Cash's in the field, in the walkway here.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the final item that we have with naming rights is the signage quote for Pictures Plus. Again, this is referencing the proposal that was already approved with them as a sponsor. That signage quote is for $1,413. Just as a reminder, again, to frame this as we have with the others, that agreement with Pictures Plus was a $4,000 per year agreement over 5 years, so it was a $20,000 agreement with them. So the total net gain to the special revenue fund for that agreement over the course of it would be $18,587. So if you take all 4 agreements together with all the signage costs that we're putting out, these 4 agreements will put into, over the course of all of the time that we have these agreements with the sponsors, will get us a net gain of $48,262 into the special revenue fund.
Can I ask one other question?
Please.
The first signage that you were doing there, it appeared like I heard you say it's a $10,000 donation, and it's almost $5,000 for the signage. How do you determine that for $10,000 you get $4,000 worth of signage, whereas somebody else is donating more money and they're getting something much smaller? I don't understand that.
Some of this is previously determined funds by a group that they would like to give in, almost in the sense that it is a donation. However, for many of these, and in fact for Tommy's Express Car Wash, which is the one that you're referencing,
yes, they
are very closely looking at the money that they're spending versus the amount of exposure that they're getting. So when we had put this proposal, or all the proposals together, we'd worked with a marketing firm. We talked about them before, Market Street Sports Group, based out of Lancaster. They had given us a market average cost for these spaces, where when they're working with very similar school districts as Chambersburg, what are the types of investments that they're getting from different sponsors for particular spots that are in those same areas. So you think of a scoreboard, well, they could get a general sense of how much each scoreboard would cost based on the general attendance that is in that building. With something like the Trojan Stadium, huge amount of people are coming in here throughout the year. If you have a sign the size of the one that's up there on actually the outside of the gymnasium, something like that would cost about $7,000 a year for us to quote to them. Just because of not only the price of the sign, but the benefit in marketing terms that they should be able to get from that. You could take these prices also and compare them to what you see with the different billboard vendors as well. We've sometimes take a look at them. So when I'm talking with a company that's interested in marketing, I could say, well, you could invest in the school district where your money is going to support children, or you could spend more and work with, one of our local billboard vendors and put a sign up for triple the cost of what you're doing.
I guess the question, I still don't understand why most of that money is going to the signage for Tommy's Express. How did that happen?
That is mostly because of that very large sign that's there. It's extremely large, and so the cost for that is much more than what some of the other ones are.
But why did they get such a big sign?
That was what we were quoted at for that price for that particular area.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Don't get it.
Any other questions?
I'll just make a comment. I'm grateful for businesses that are willing to partner with us and that are generous to what we're doing. I think it would be, I've been in gyms where there are signs and ads everywhere, and I've been in gyms where there are none. And I would just encourage us to be careful. And I think you can do advertising in a way that's very tasteful, and you can do it in a way that's just obnoxious. We've all been to websites where you can't even read the article you're trying to read. So I would just encourage us to not get so carried away with this, and I don't think that's where we are yet, but I think we ought to be cautious in how we proceed with some of this. I've been to quite a few, at least 50 different school district websites around the state, for example, and so far, I'm sure there are others, but so far, we're the only school district website, that has an ad right at the top. And I think it communicates something to people. When the first thing you see is an ad, it could communicate that, we're desperate for money, or, we're willing to, that's the first thing we want people to see. And I'm not saying we should have no ads on a website, but, is that really what we want? So whether we're talking about online or talking about our facilities, I think there is a point where, you're giving something up. And to some extent, that's how advertising works. And it is the world that we live in, but I would just caution us, do we really want our schools plastered with endless signs? I think there should be some kind of limit. I don't think we're at that point, but when we talk about a large sign and the kickback we're getting on it, it had me starting to just think about some of those questions. So.
Okay, so we're okay to put them on the consent agenda?
Yes.
All right. And Mrs. Stein, disposal of district property.
Yes, Buildings and Grounds has a few items that they would like to dispose of. We have a 2002 Chevy pickup truck that needs significant repairs in order for it to pass inspection. So we would like to sell this. Actually, we've already posted this. This is an information item only. We have a 2012 zero-turn mower and a 1995 John Deere tractor. So we are posting those on Municipid, and I think we've already gotten a lot of hits on those. I didn't have time to check today, but so we will be disposing of those then. If you know anybody that wants any of these, tell them to check out Municipid. Thank you.
No.
Yeah, Dear John. Is that a letter? No, never mind.
Forget it then. That'd be a fun tool to play with. The truck, hey, so everybody listening on YouTube, the truck does have a plow, but
no tires, but it has.
And a bed that slides out, which is kind of custom, I guess. So interesting, but no bucket with the tractor. So, all right, with that, we're concluded. Thank you, everyone. We'll go back to executive session.